So we say bye-bye to the Mall of Kintyre. We've rounded it for the first time. It was a very smooth one. Just at the very end there was some turbulences, nothing to worry about, but I can see that's probably quite fearsome in the wrong conditions. We have now set course to Islay, which is about 20 miles or so ahead of us. And we arrived safely in Port Ellen on Islay. Port Ellen has a small marina with 36 visitor berths for yachts up to 15 meters. It is Islay's main deep water harbour, and the town is the largest place on the island, followed by Bowmore. Today is quite a breezy day. We measured up to 27 knots, maybe it's even more in gusts, so we're not going sailing. It's a lovely day, but we're going to go for a walk. And this is a very particular walk actually. We can go from Port Ellen along the coast, and we will take 3 whiskey distilleries with us: Laphroaig, Lagavulin and Ardbeg here. So we're gonna make these and see what we can do in these distilleries.
So heute spazieren wir, oder ja, es ist nur ein kleiner Spaziergang zu 3 Destillerien. Ich glaube, zuerst kommt Laphroaig, Lagavulin. Lagavulin. Nimm schon, spazieren wir etwa 2 Kilometer nur, glaube ich, sogar hin und zurück, zu 3 Destillerien. Laphroaig, Lagavulin und Ardbeg.
Lagavulin. The cognac of whiskies. Works like a depth charge. Pow.
In Griechenland. Alles mies.
Laphroaig Distillery was founded in 1815 by members of the Clan Donald. It has been the only whisky to carry the royal warrant of the Prince of Wales, which was awarded in person by then Prince Charles. The 15-year-old is reportedly King Charles III's favourite Scotch whisky. It tastes very nice, very well peated, but very nice. Otters generally are very elusive and notoriously tricky to spot. But sitting in the garden of Laphroaig Distillery, tasting a 10-year-old whisky, we were lucky to observe them swimming in the bay. What a unique view! We always wanted to spot an otter, and the whole setting here is nearly surreal. It's a pity that you can't smell in the video. We love the smell from the pagoda-style kiln chimney, where the barley is dried over a peat fire. It's just perfect. Enjoy the scenery as a greying heron flies by and has a walk around the shore, watched by the swan couple swimming in front of the distillery. Delightful, elegant, like the whisky. But we're on a mission, and Lagavulin is calling. One of our favourites. We enjoy an easy and entertaining walk. As we arrive at Lagavulin, we learn at the visitor centre that all tours and tastings of the day are booked out. So we decide to have a stroll through the estate to the bay, which is described as an anchorage for small boats and has 2 visitors' moorings. At the seafront, we encounter a bloke taking a break at his favourite place. By his uniform, a worker at the distillery, we ask him what his role is. "Oh, I'm just a tour guide," he says. We have a short chat with the guy before he stands up and leaves for his next tour. We take a seat at the table and soak in the scenery and the sun. After a few moments, the guy comes back, with 2 tasting glasses and a bottle of 20-year cask strength Lagavulin. He pours us a dram, says, "Keep the glasses," and disappears through a warehouse door. On our way back in the visitor centre, we tell the staff about our amazing experience. Rather sheepish do we look when the lady tells us, "Oh, you met Iain," and that Iain is the legend in the whisky world. Having worked over half a century in the industry, there is not a job he wouldn't have done in the process of making fine whisky. Today, if you're lucky, you can get the master blender as a guide in a warehouse tasting, or, like us, meet him in the sun at Lagavulin Bay. And on we walk to Ardbeg. On our way, we encounter playful lambs and a bird of prey circling above our heads. Cows with their calves in the green, obviously ruminating their lunch. There is something calming looking at them. Ardbeg Distillery has been producing whisky since 1798 and began commercial production in 1815. In July 2022, the distillery sold a 1975 cask to a private collector for £16 million, beating Macallan's record for the highest cask selling price. Ardbeg whiskies are usually heavily peated malts. Compared to other Islay malts, Ardbeg doesn't focus on the sea and salt tastes. They rather focus on aromas of spices, malt or sweet tones like vanilla and chocolate. The walk and the drams take their toll on us, and as it's over 5 kilometers to Polaris in Porthahaven, we decide to take the bus back.
So heute möchten wir gerne von Porthahaven, alles hier hoch, nach Bowmore heißt es, glaube ich, das ist hier, im Großen gesehen. Da hat es eine Destillerie und dann gehen wir um die Ecke nach
Bruichladdich.
Bruichladdich. Oberhalb von Port gehen wir wieder hier, Port Charlotte, also wir gehen hier herum, Port Charlotte, Bruichladdich. Steigen wir wieder aus und dann nehmen wir nochmals den Bus nach Porthahaven. Und dann alles wieder zurück. Ein Tagesausflug.
Islay has even an airport. It sits between the island's 2 main places, Porthahaven and Bowmore. It was built during the Second World War, and today about 13,000 passengers per year use this way to travel from Edinburgh, Glasgow, Aberdeen and Inverness to Islay. Bowmore is the second largest town on Islay. It serves as the administrative capital of the island and gives its name to Bowmore Distillery, producing Bowmore single malt, another one of the island's nectars. Bowmore Distillery is Islay's oldest licensed distillery. However, the distillery was established around 1779, making it one of Scotland's oldest distilleries. For us, drinking whisky shortly after 10 a.m, of course, is very unusual, particularly also because we had skipped our breakfast. But after short consideration, we conclude that it would be rude not to, and we were introduced to Bowmore No. 1, a perfect breakfast whisky according to the barman. And as we leave the place, we carry a bottle of its No. 1 in our rucksack.
Du bist richtig Fan von der Insel.
The small and beautiful fishing and crafting village of Porthahaven is situated at the very tip of the Rins of Islay in the west of the island. Seals can be spotted lounging on the rocks and dolphins surfing the current. The tide flows ferociously between the islands close offshore, more like a river than the sea. a lovely place here on the very southwest of the island of Islay. Behind this island here, the next stop, the next piece of land is America. The whitewashed cottages wrapped around the deep bay have been there since the early 19th century. The Rins of Islay lighthouse on the small island of Aurélie was built in 1825 by Robert Stevenson, a famous lighthouse designer and the father of Robert Louis Stevenson, famous for his books Treasure Island and The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. For many years, Bruichladdich was known as the malt which the locals drank, something which surprised many visitors as it was an unpeated whisky. The notion that the locals, the Illichs, would automatically prefer the big peat bombs from elsewhere on the island was seemingly untrue. The lack of smoke wasn't the result of this local preference, but dictated by the needs of the blending firms who had always owned the distillery. We taste the range of Bruichladdich products. Our personal highlight and favourite is called Octomore 13.4. With a phenol content of 137.3 parts per million, it is the most heavily peated Scotch available. The distillery is dedicated to sustainable production. As one of very few companies, it has partnered with our favourite outdoor clothing company Patagonia, itself a leader in sustainability. The buses on Islay are coordinated with the school schedules and the needs of the locals, so it isn't always easy to reach a particular place, such as a distillery, by public transport, and it often involves long walks along the streets. It is customary to just stop the bus along the route, no particular need to wait at the bus stop, and if you speak to the drivers, they are more than happy to stop anywhere on the route on request. As a novelty, at least for me, Catherine and I try some good old hitchhiking with fantastic result. Never do we really have to wait for a long time. Any car with seats available will pick us up. Most likely not because of me, but because of Catherine's good looks. Thank you all for the lifts. Islay's remote northeast corner might seem a strange place to find a substantial Victorian distillery, but it was chosen in 1881 by William Robertson as the perfect spot for his island vision. Constructing it meant not only building the distillery, but houses as well, putting in a road and adding on a pier so that casks and barley could come in and whisky could go out by ship. We meet Mark, the tour guide, and he takes his time to give us an impromptu quick tour around the warehouse.
It's very cold in here, so I won't keep you in here for too long.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't mind. The smell is amazing.
The smell, oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
We can go have a little look at some special casks that we've got right up there. These are octaves. So they are half the size of a quarter cask. So that would be 64.5, I think, if my math's right. So because these are so small, the whisky in here will mature so quickly. So what we've got right in there is PX Sherry octaves. So they're about 4 years old and they are already extremely mature. So last year for our festival, one of our releases was the Ardnahoe, and we've put a little bit of that in there as well. So that's why there's no age statement on it, because we would have to say the youngest thing in there, which is 3 years old.
3 years, yeah.
But
Just
it's
the
not,
whiskey,
it's 3 years old biology-wise, but really it's so mature. So the whiskey in there, it's almost like syrup. You could take it out with a spoon.
Oh, wow.
It's incredible.
Ardnahoe Distillery produced its first cask of whisky in 2018 and officially opened in 2019. The visitor centre with a lovely cafe and very kind staff looks very welcoming, and the views on the Sound of Islay and the Paps of Jura are simply stunning. However, we don't spend a lot of time here because all Ardnahoe whisky is still maturing in the casks for another couple of years.
Caol Ila.
Somebody told us that Caol Ila has the best office view on Islay, and they were right. The place in the wild cliffs above the water is first class. The distillery reopened for visitors in August 2022, and its bar shares the spectacular views on the Sound. We take a welcome seat at the bar and share the tasting of 3 Caol Ilas.
Can't decide. I really like this one, and then you have this one. Choices, options, whatever.
So we take both. We made it a principle that we would only taste and buy whiskey you can buy nowhere else but at the distillery. We walk back to Porthahaven, and after an exhausting day we enjoy an ice cream whilst waiting for our bus back to Port Ellen. Today is Sunday, and Sunday on the Scottish Islands, unless in most of the rest of the UK, is a day of rest. Even our bus driver takes a day off. And for us, it's an opportunity to explore the beaches around Port Ellen, and one in particular called Singing Sands. Finally, walking through an alluring small forest, we get a glimpse of the lighthouse. We're not there yet, but the scenery is already spectacular. Ebbetstein.
Nee.
Survive. On our way to the lighthouse, we pass the Kilnaughton burial ground. Caol Ila Lighthouse, or however this is pronounced, is unusual as it is the only square lighthouse in Scotland. From the lighthouse, it is only a short walk south along the Oa Peninsula et voila, the Singing Sands. It's not a result of consuming too much whiskey, no. When you walk along this beach and slide your shoes against the sand, it is said to make a singing sound. But believe us, we tried everything. We even took our shoes off, but there was no singing. Or maybe the waves crashing on the beach were just too loud. So this is Singing Sands, called Singing Sands because apparently the sand should be making some noise when you walk over it. We didn't hear it, but it's a very beautiful spot nevertheless. The bright turquoise, clean and crystal clear water and the golden caramel coloured sand that contrasts the black and craggy sea cliffs makes this one of the most picturesque beaches on Islay. Sometimes sitting outside in such a stunning and peaceful place is very spiritual. On our way back, we pass the civil and military cemeteries of Kilnaughton. We linger in this solemn place and wonder about the life stories of the individuals buried here. The military cemetery once held the graves of US and Commonwealth servicemen victims of a German World War I torpedo. The remains of 84 US servicemen were later removed and interred in US war cemeteries in the UK and back home. Kilchoman is one of only a handful of distilleries still practicing traditional floor malting, a process that Scotland's other distilleries have outsourced to commercial maltsters. The labour-intensive nature of malting is a significant factor in its demise, though it is a central step in the production of whisky. Kilchoman whisky is a single farm, single malt Scotch whisky where all stages of the process are completed at Kilchoman from barley to bottle. If you are new to whisky and whisky production, we recommend a tour and tasting at Kilchoman. You will get a comprehensive overview on all stages of whisky production, and you can even try some wash, the beer-like liquid that is filled into the stills for distillation.
Thank you.
That's a wash.
Well, actually, I'm ambidextrous, so I cannot pour this with my right hand. It was great during English exams, but for nothing else.
Not so bad. I won't go in all the details of whiskey production. I'd rather tell you the story how we came about to be on this tour. After having visited all distilleries on Islay, but Kilchoman, we decided it would be rude not to give them a visit too. So off we go on the bus and ask the driver to drop us at the junction where the small 7.5 kilometers single track road leads to the distillery. Without a plan, we start a lengthy walk, and soon we think that a hitchhike would be an appropriate means of transport. So up went the thumb at every passing car, and soon there was one passing, packed with 4 blokes. Sorry, no space, they signalled while slowly driving by. On we go, we think. After about 10 minutes, the same grey car returns, minus 2 of the blokes, and they offer us a ride to the distillery.
This one, as you're not supposed to mature it in anything.
On the way, we found out that the 4 whiskey aficionados, Rick, Craig, Jeff and Craig, from Oregon and California, are on a lengthy Scotch whiskey tour. We just make it before the tour starts, and lucky as we are, the lady at the reception books us in as additional participants.
With it being in those red wine vats for so long. But how do you think? What do you think?
We end the day with a dram with our new friends, including our buddy boaters Aurélie, Manu and baby Gaël from the good ship Babig. This concludes this not so dry episode on dry land. Join us next time when we continue our journey on the water to the island of Jura and the Faroe Islands.
Goed. Is vrij, hè? Ja.